And so we have part two, looking at the rise of Hitler and the National Socialist Party. And this one focuses on the beginnings of the Nazi Party. You've seen these before. Here are our learning outcomes. Which brings us to the beginning of the NSDAP and Nazism. So the party began as the German Workers' Party in 1919 by Anton Drexler. And the goal was to be both for the working class and nationalists. So the socialists and the communists were on the left, and they were very much trying to they appealed quite a bit to the working classes because they were trying to sort of address some of the inequalities that happened economically and politically. At the same time, though, most of the nationalists tended to be those of the upper strata, right, the elites. So the purpose of this was to create a workers' party, a party that addressed the needs of the lower classes while still speaking to the German identity. Hitler joined in September 1919. Initially, he was put in there as basically as a spy, and it was his way of being able to keep his salary in the army salary, and kind of reporting back to the higher ups about these another party that was potentially socially destabilizing, right? Remember all of the stuff that was happening in 1919 with the Spartacist revolt and the November Revolution and all of this stuff, right? So this was the young Weimar, and some of those groups were just trying to keep a lid and figure out what was going on. And so eventually, he was put in charge of recruitment and propaganda. One, because he had oratory skills, debating skills that other people lacked, and he demonstrated this. But the flip side is that this also provided him with an opportunity to improve those skills that he is going to later capitalize on. And basically, he took control of the party a little later on, and the 25-point program was created, and it has both nationalist and socialist demands. But he was not the spearhead of the creation of this program. It was still a lot of Drexler's ideas in creating this party that was both working class and nationalist. And in 1921, he creates the Sturmabteilung, forgive my German, the stormtroopers, or SA, and these were originally designed to protect party meetings. Because, of course, this is a very tumultuous time. It is politically unstable. It is socially unstable. And they were constantly basically under threat by the military arm, the paramilitary of groups like the communists. And so this essentially consisted of mostly former members of the Freikorps. These are, again, soldiers who are out of work, who have been released from the military, and all of this nationalism and stuff spoke to many of these guys. Hitler, one of the things that Hitler brought to the party is the oratory skills and kind of his ability to suss out the emotions of the crowd and what people needed and wanted to hear, and delivering that. Another thing is that he very much understood the propaganda value of symbols, how those influenced how people then interacted and reacted with the party. So there was the adoption of the swastika to give like a clear symbol that people would recognize. There was a raised arm salute, again, identifying marks of the Nazi Party. There is the use of military uniforms and the marches, kind of to make themselves visible to people, and to present this sort of like unity and get people to perceive them as being organized. Carr said in 1987, in his book in 1987, called in History of Germany, 1815 to 1985, he said that a Hitler speech was superb theater. Hitler was his own scriptwriter, choreographer, and actor-manager all rolled into one. So he essentially was able to, through his speeches, through the propaganda, grab people's attention and speak what they wanted to hear, speak what they were thinking, what they felt out loud, kind of in a way provide a voice to what was going on, and kind of rally people to his side in that way. People felt that he really kind of understood and could articulate what they were feeling. And so we have some propaganda here. What do we want? The title reads, "Citizens, do not believe that the Germany of misfortune and misery, the nation of corruption and usury, the land of Jewish corruption can be saved by parties that claim to stand on a foundation of facts. Never." May 1921. Another piece of propaganda. And so this happened after the beer hall putsch. And it says, "Our great leader is still illegally held behind bars. Strasser, his representative in the right leadership of the National Socialist Freedom Movement, will speak for him in Münster on Saturday, November 29th, 1924. He is the lead candidate of the National Socialists in Westphalia. Non-Germans not admitted. Disabled veterans free. Admissions, 30 Pfennig, something in German." All right. So even while he was away in prison, he himself was still could be used as a propaganda tool. And if you look at this poster, this speech, the way that it's organized, that they're allowing veterans to come in free, all of this stuff is still kind of rolling the message along. The name of the German Workers' Party was changed to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, in 1920 in an effort to broaden the appeal of the party to larger segments of the population and thereby be able to enter government. So we spoke about the beer hall putsch of 1923 earlier when we were talking about the challenges faced by the Weimar Republic. And in this, the Nazis tried to gain power by force, and they were hoping that basically they would make connections with other right-wing groups in Bavaria, and they would then be able to gain support of people within the Bavarian government who hated the central government, who hated the Social Democrats, and who hated this new Weimar Republic. And once they took over Bavaria, then they would be able to spread into other parts of Germany. And they were inspired by Mussolini's March on Rome. The propaganda out of Italy at this time was that Mussolini and his fascists, they marched on Rome, they confronted the king, and they forced the king to give Mussolini control of the government, and Mussolini became the prime minister, and essentially he took over the government and dismantled the liberal democratic government that had been in place there. And so this was kind of their way. This would be the beginning, and they would then be able to take over and do the same thing. As you well know, the beer hall putsch failed, and they were brought up on charges, and Hitler spent 9 months in jail, an extremely light sentence, partly because of the sort of sympathy that of the judicial system had for more nationalist sentiments as a rejection of the liberalism of the Social Democrats in the Weimar Republic. And so basically, Hitler realized that force was not going to work. And therefore, the way to be able to attain their goals and create this quote unquote better Germany is legally. Hitler said it would be necessary to hold our noses and enter the Reichstag along Marxist and Catholic deputies. So essentially, with his enemies, he would have to structure a political party and get elected. And then once they were elected, then they could change the government. So they're going to need to increase the target demographic beyond the working classes. The working classes aren't enough to get them enough votes and seats in the Reichstag to really change things. So they have to broaden their appeal. So this is when he starts moving away from the socialist parts of the 25 points, and the nationalist comes to the fore in order to bring the middle class in to gain support from the middle classes. And after prison, as you well know, in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, in which he kind of explains a lot of his ideology. He fine-tuned some of his ideology and his ideas for how the government should be organized. And when he gets out of prison, he reorganizes the party to be more of a party. And at the same time, he also has the Nazi movement happening to gain support amongst people. So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. And so in 1926, he had increased his authority and control. And so we have concentrating control into his hand, and we have the development of the cult of the leader, or the Fuehrer Principle. It's the Fuehrer Principle. So part of this involved reorganizing the SA and with increased responsibility for distribution of propaganda. So the SA wasn't only supposed to be now bullies or people to fight to protect the meetings, but they actually have an active role in spreading the message, in trying to gain support. He divided the party into 35 regions, and he places one dude in charge of each region. So he basically sets up kind of like this pyramid with him on top. In 1926, he also creates the SS, here's my good German pronunciation, the Schutzstaffel, and as his personal bodyguards. And the SS was part of the SA at this point, but essentially it was the elites within the SA, the people that Hitler most trusted. And he begins the Hitler Youth to proselytize to the young people to kind of get them involved and to broaden his base of support. So trying to get more young people in there. And we're not just talking about like little people, but people, remember, the voting age is 21, right? So he's trying to expand it into people who could be potential voters. So not just the little people, but also university students and things like this. So despite all of this work, by 1928, the membership was still very low. He was only able to get 12 seats in the Reichstag, and that's not nearly enough to do anything that he wanted. And so here is a poster from April 1929 looking at the provincial elections in Saxony. The caption reads, "Break the Dawes chains." So again, kind of fighting against the results of the Treaty of Versailles. And so, of course, we know by 1929, the Great Depression, the Wall Street crashes happened, and the Great Depression is basically starting. Another election poster, 1929, the caption reads, 2 million dead, did they die in vain? Never. Front soldiers. Adolf Hitler is showing you the way. So essentially by 1929, of course, he has more meat, I guess, to grind because of the negative results of the Great Depression on German society. And here comes your time for a pause. So take a little bit of time. I know, wishful thinking on my part. To what extent do Hitler's personal talents explain the rise and the appeal of Nazism in the late 20s and 30s? So this is kind of like thinking about the force of personality, and in a way that big man in history way of interpreting history. So pause, please, 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 and take a few minutes and write an answer to this question.